Ferrules are the nickel-silver components that assemble your bamboo blank into a rod. And I want to go over today some of the things that a person should be familiar with as it comes to working with ferrules. And ultimately, your goal is to take the male slide of the ferrule and the female part and get them so they fit together nice and smooth with just a little bit of pressure, and then come apart with a nice firm steady tug. You should hear that little pop sound, and that means you have a perfectly lapped ferrule. When you buy ferrules, they're going to come oversized, meaning that the male slide typically runs about 1,000 to about 15 10,000ths of an inch oversized. So when you buy ferrules, first thing you're going to notice is that they will not assemble. That's because you need to lap the male ferrule down in order for your rods to assemble. When you get a ferrule, I always recommend always buying the best you can when it comes to ferrule. I get mine from Snake brand. They're high quality, very consistent in their sizing, and has never given me any problems when it comes to working with them. So buy quality nickel silver ferrules from any supplier that you trust, and I'm going to show you some of the tools that are going to be needed to lap the ferrules. I invested in some high quality files. These are Grobet Swiss files. They're pillar files, sizes 4 and 6, and I use this to do the bulk of my work when it comes to lapping with ferrules. And I'm going to kind of demonstrate a little bit of what that looks like here shortly. Also, you're going to need a way to measure your ferrule and the progress you're making on lapping. Your calipers, they're probably not going to cut it. These calipers definitely don't. They only measure down to 1,000th of an inch. So what I have is a micrometer, which is far more sensitive, and it's going to be able to measure down to 15 10,000ths of an inch. And that's really going to tell the story of where I'm at when it comes to lapping, where I might have some high points and some lower valleys. So I can measure along in multiple places to see where I'm going and how much further I have to lap it. Because one thing you definitely want to be aware of is to never overlap a ferrule. So go slow and steady and measure often. Here I have the ferrule that I already have lapped inside the micrometer. And what I want to show you is it's really not necessarily to know how to measure based upon reading the numbers as much as it is just understanding what the different scales are. And this counter scale here is going to represent my 10,000ths of an inch. So as you can see, far more accurate when you have this large representation of such a small amount to measure and see. What I did is, since this one already fits perfectly into the female slide, I put a red dot on this 9, and I put a red dot on this line here. And those two lines match up. So that's my measurement that I'm aiming for. So if I take a look at where this red dot is and this red dot is on a good ferrule that's already been lapped, I'm going to put in the ferrule that I still need to work on. And now you can see that it is in fact 15 10,000ths of an inch away. So it's lining up in between this 7 and 8. And what I want to do is travel it down to the 9. So what I'll be doing is I'll be removing the material until my dots line up. To give a little perspective of what thousandths of an inch or 15 10,000ths of an inch looks like, I'm going to take this piece of paper and we're going to measure it in these calipers. And what we should come up with is 3/1000 of an inch approximately. So yep, right about 15. So that's right about 3/1000 of an inch for a piece of paper. So right there, if we can see the light through there, 3/1000 of an inch. And what I'm looking at is half of that. So 10, right about there. So that's half the piece of paper. So that's what we're looking to take off of our male ferrules around the whole circumference. So it's slow and steady to do the work. And what I find is that with my files, this is going to be one of the Grobat files I was talking about, with the coarser of the two being the size 4. I take about a dozen passes with my file, and then I come back with my size 6, which is the finer of the two, and about another 10 or so passes, and that gets me really close. And then I'll use a little bit of 1000 grit paper followed up by 2000 grit, and then polish down with some 4/0 steel wheel, and that should give me a pretty good fit for my ferrule. What I have here is the male ferrule, and it's chucked up inside a drill that's mounted inside a 2x6 box, and I'll show you how it's mounted here in a moment. But I have one single turn of masking tape that's not overlapping, just to protect the ferrule from the chuck. And here is the drill. It is a corded drill. I don't think that a battery operated drill is going to be able to run fast enough or long enough without draining and slowing down to get a ferrule lapped. And it's just a 2x6 box constructed with a pipe clamp and a hole, and it's a very workable system to lap ferrules. And also, if you're looking to turn your own grips off the blank, you can put in a threaded rod and stack your cork and glue it and turn grips in this as well. You just might need to have some type of out-feed brace for the other side of the grip. So I'm going to show you a little bit of turning this ferrule, and I'm going to start with my size 4 file. And what I'm going to do is, as it's turning, I'm going to kind of work from the top, and I'm going to slide it back to the tape line, and then just going to repeat it. And I'll probably move the file around a little bit, as you can see with my files need a little bit of cleaning, but you're going to get a little bit of that build up inside it. And I'm just going to continue to make passes. Like I said, from my experience with my setup and my files and the pressure I use, about 12 passes with this file gets me really close. I can finish it off with the finer file and then with the sandpaper at the end. Now, you could use sandpaper the whole way through with the different grits, but one of the things that's going to happen is use sandpaper, it's not rigid like this file, so you're going to have different pressures as you move it up and back, and you're going to end up with highs and lows, little wavy places with that sandpaper, and it's not going to give you a smooth fit. It's doable, but I do recommend a set of files. So I'm going to get this spinning, and I'll show you what a couple passes look like. All right, let's see how much material we still need to go. All right, as you can see, we're looking to line up my red dots. That's where I know I'm on target to have a nice fit. And when we started, we were about 15 thousandths out, and now we're about 1,000. So that pass was about a third of the way there. So I'm pretty confident that a few more spins on that drill is going to get that ferrule perfect. All right, that last pass, we made some progress. We're getting close. And remember to always take measurements, and I usually do in about 3 different places, because you're going to see slight variances in your scale. And so this will let you know if you need to focus more attention at the front of the slide or towards the rear of the slide. My experience is that usually you're going to need to have a little extra attention towards the back side, but you do want to be careful, because if your backside is right on the mark and you're not aware of that, and the front side is still over large and is holding you back, you might spend all your time continuing to file away to get the front to fit, only to find out you overlap the backside. So it's always important to take multiple measurements throughout this process. I think one more pass and we should pretty much have this done. That last run left me about 0.0005 over. So that's a good mark to start really sneaking up on my final dimension. So we've taken 1,000th off this ferrule at this point, and I'm left with half a thou to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit it with my size 6 file, a few passes, and this time I might come in a little bit of an angle just so I can take this sharp edge and chamfer it a little bit, put a little bevel in there. So I'm going to put it on there, real quick pass, or real light touch, and then flatten it out, take a few passes, and then I'm going to follow it up with my 1,000 grit sandpaper, and then my 2,000 grit sandpaper, and then polish it off with 4/0 steel wool. 1,000, 2,000 grit paper can be had at an auto parts store in the car painting supply aisles. So that's where you're going to find that. And that steel will get stuck in the truck. All right, hopefully that's our last pass. That last pass just about did it. I did have to chuck it up one more time, make a couple of passes, but we got a smooth fitting ferrule that I'd be proud to put my name on. when you're testing it in the female ferrule, it's always handy to have a couple of little grippers. These are just from an old bike tube that I cut up into some swatches, and they just really help you grip, because sometimes you'll put them together and they'll be tight and it's really hard to grip, particularly off a blank. I always recommend doing it without the gripper first, because if you have the gripper on your hand, you push them together, well, you're going to really get them in there, and it's going to be harder to get apart. So as you hand fit them and make them snug, and then give it a pull, that's a good ferrule. And this is the one we just finished up, and slide that one in, slides in nice, and same pressure, same pop, so try to make them as identical as possible. With your female ferrule, even before you start fitting it, I usually like to take a little bit of steel wool and work it inside and polish it down, and feel if there's any like tooling marks or anything. There rarely ever, if ever, are, but I do like to polish it on the inside just to make it as smooth as possible to give the best fit. And it's just a little steel wool. You can even wrap this around a Q-tip, chuck it up in a drill, and spin it inside as well to speed the job up. But we got a set of ferrules to go on our blank, and the only thing left to do with these is to kind of clean them up a little bit. We're going to be cleaning the inside of these and prepping a blank. Talk about different types of glues to be used when installing ferrules, and we'll get that all together. And the only thing left is to tip top, wrap, and varnish on a blank. Thank you.